Fascinating. Would you look at that? You don't say. Look. Wonder what all this means. Oh yeah, that one's going to be a beauty. You know, it's interesting how in our age of technology, everything is becoming lighter, thinner, faster, more efficient, and the same holds for gardening, particularly as demonstrated in urban farming techniques in small spaces. So today we're exploring the small details that make big impact. From tiny flowers to compact living spaces, I'm going to show you how to enjoy the little things.
Nano means small, really small. In fact, the word nano is a prefix that means billionth of a meter. So like a nanosecond would be a billionth of 1 second, and a nanometer would be billionth of 1 meter. So if I were to break this meter stick into a billion pieces, each one would be 1 nanometer wide.
My name's Kevin Delaney, and we're at the Museum of Discovery in Little Rock.
Now, we can't see nanometer-sized things with our eyes, but properties of materials change when it gets that small. So let's look at gold, for example. Gold, as we know, is a sort of a yellow, soft metal. It doesn't really conduct heat very well, but nanoparticles of gold, once you get down to that size, their properties change. So gold not only conducts heat very well, it changes color from sort of a yellow to red and orange. And this is nothing new. For years and years, stained glass artisans have been using gold to create these colors, and silver to create green and blue. If you were to look at a blue morpho butterfly, for example, to us it looks blue. If you were actually to look at those little structures on a butterfly's wings, you see that it's reflecting light in a different way, and they're actually brown. Believe it or not, if you look at it under the right light, a blue morpho butterfly is actually brown. I have some hot water here. I'm gonna pour it right into this beaker. Now my wire, as you can see, it's a spring shape. It used to look like this, but now it's all sort of stretched out. But because it's made of nanoparticles of tin and nickel, it can do something kind of amazing. Let's see that again. Wow. Now, nanomaterials are also capable of manipulating light in different ways. So I have something here. If we look into this beaker, we see kind of a red, kind of ornament looking thing, sort of like a chocolate kiss. If we look in here, we see a clear one. But look carefully, because if we were to lift this out, we might find something kind of surprising. This is a nanomaterial called borosilicate glass. This is baby oil. Borosilicate glass and baby oil kind of react a little bit strangely to each other, where the light doesn't quite go around, but go through. So it kind of masks our other ornament pretty well. So with materials like this, scientists are able to create invisibility materials. So the invisibility cloak might not be too far off, but be careful. Use invisibility wisely.
Coming up, do you know what it takes to live tiny?
It's kind of just human nature that no matter how much space we're given, we're gonna fill it up.
And later, using a little spice with big flavor for a sweet treat. Seems like these days everyone's becoming a little more environmentally conscious, thinking about the choices that they make, even down to tiny houses. And I don't mean doll houses like this. The tiny house movement encourages people to scale down in favor of more economic and environmentally conscious places to live.
We originally just wanted to increase our garden area and grow some chickens, and one thing led to another, and here we are in a 269 square foot tiny home. We're in the living room right now. We've got 9-foot ceilings, but they vault up into a dormer light. We did several things with the tiny home in order to make it feel bigger. For one thing, this is actually a miniature love seat. We put lots of windows in it, and we like to keep the blinds open so that people can get an infinity feeling. We chose the color white because white is seamless and gives things a bigger feel. You don't feel as boxed in. There's far less space that you have to clean, far less space that you're going to have to maintain, far less space that you're going to have to heat and cool. With the cost of a tiny home, if you did have to take out a mortgage, even though the entire cost of this home is likely what most people pay for, a newer vehicle today. So you could own your own home and have your own micro farm for what most people are going to pay for their SUV. And so we're in the bedroom now. This is just over 70 square feet, which gives us just enough room for a full-size bed, place to store your stuff. We've got a couple of built-in armoire cabinets, several shelves up here, a place to hang your clothes, as well as several drawers with plenty of space. So we're on the other end of the house where the kitchen is, and again, it's relatively a full-size kitchen short of the dishwasher. You have your refrigerator, you have a sink, stove, microwave. Living tiny, you do lose a lot of storage space, but you gain more freedom in that you have more money to spend in experiences. Enough is always just whatever you say it is. And so for some people, not for everybody, a tiny home is enough.
Next, these aren't your grandmother's hot cross buns. You won't want to miss this, so stick around.
My name is Alexis Jones, and I am a chef, and I've been working in restaurants for over 10 years. Alan and I got together. We wanted to use saffron and cardamom to show how a little bit of an ingredient can go a very long way. So we came up with doing a pumpkin cinnamon roll. Well, the first step is roasting the pumpkin, and it takes about 15 to 20 minutes at 375 degrees. We put it over some rosemary to add a little bit of extra rosemary flavor and give a little more savory note. The next step was to toast the spices. So we used clove, cardamom, and nutmeg, as well as ground cinnamon and some fresh ginger that we grated into the pan, and just toast it for a few minutes until it's fragrant. After it's done toasting, I just put it straight into a coffee grinder and ground it till it was fine. So for the pecans, I started with whipping egg whites until they are frothy. I took saffron and soaked it in a little bit of water to help it bloom and develop its flavor, and tossed that in with the egg whites, also the chai spice, and then we folded in the pecans and finished with a little bit of brown sugar and cinnamon. Put it into the oven about 325 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. By the time your pecans are done, your pumpkin should be finished roasting. So you want to take it out of the oven and scoop the flesh out, and then put it in the food processor with a little bit of butter and salt until it's completely whipped together. I usually use about 1.5 ounces of unsalted butter. I used a basic yeast dough recipe and brewed a little bit of chai tea for it. First thing you need to do is bloom your yeast. So take your packet of yeast and 3/4 cup of very warm water. You want to add a little bit of sugar as well into that, because the yeast will eat it and it'll help them grow. Let it sit for about 10 minutes for the yeast to get frothy. And in a standing mixer, you're going to add 3 cups of all-purpose flour and let that start for about 10 minutes coming together. It'll form a bit of a ball, but it'll still be dry. And add 1/4 cup of chai tea and 2 big tablespoons of the pumpkin butter, as well as a pinch of salt. And let that form a ball and knead for a few minutes. After you knead it, you want to put it in a bowl. Cover it with plastic wrap and let it rise. It takes about 30 minutes. And then you'll take it out and you'll punch it down again and put it back in the bowl. and let it rise 10 more minutes. While you're waiting on your dough to rise, it's a good time to make your cream cheese icing. So start with room temperature cream cheese and butter, and with a paddle attachment in the mixer, you want to get that creamed until it adds a little bit of air in it. I added some chai spice as well to that, and then about half a cup of powdered sugar, and a little bit of heavy cream, vanilla to taste, just a teaspoon. So when the dough's ready, you want to put it on a floured surface and roll it out to about a half of an inch to a quarter inch thickness, depending on your preference. I like to roll it out and turn it over to make sure both sides are floured and aren't going to stick to the board. I chopped up some of the pecans for the filling. After it's rolled out, you want to spread a good layer of the pumpkin butter. Finish it with some brown sugar and cinnamon, enough to coat the entire surface, and then the pecans. And then you take it from there and you will fold it over itself and roll it, being careful to keep an even distribution. Once you roll it up, you want to make sure that you pinch the edges and the sides so that they all stay together, and then slice it. So after you roll it and slice it, you want to take it straight to the cast iron skillet, and it'll go into the oven at 375 for 15 minutes. I like to take it out and add a little bit of butter and pecans on top of it. The butter will help it brown, and then just go back in the oven for 2 minutes. So smear the cream cheese frosting on top of it, garnish with some more pecans, and then you're ready to serve.
Now, who says flowers have to be big to make a statement? After the break, we'll take a look at some really cute microblooms. Sometimes the tiniest little blooms can pack the biggest punch. They can be quite a surprise, particularly when they're delivered in multitude. And when they constellate with other flowers, you can see here, these tiny little blooms juxtapose these petunias are the perfect contrast of the tiny to the large. These little micro flowers, if you will, really set off the larger flowers. One of my favorites is Lobularia. This one's called White Knight. You can see how dense it is. It's quite an improvement from the old-fashioned sweet alyssum in that it flowers all the time. Another tiny flowered annual to think about is this one, which is a euphorbia. This one is called Diamond Frost, and it has a cousin called Diamond Delight, which has double flowers and is even more compact. It's worth checking out. And then take a look over here. Another one perfect for hanging baskets. Really a classic for the hanging basket. This one's called Lobelia Sky Blue, and I just love that blue color, these tiny little blooms. You see, all of those little blooms, when delivered in multitude like that, can really create quite a visual impact, and that's what you're looking for. And these are perfect for hanging baskets. So when you're thinking about creating a container, think about color, but also think about texture and how that texture might be delivered through the contrast of larger flowers and these tiny little microchips. Sometimes it's the little things that make all the difference in decorating. Up next, my good friend Jay Schwanke will stop by to give us his expert advice on making your own flower arrangements.
It's a great basis for having something living in the house.
Sure.
And then
it'll last a long time.
It lasts a long time.
You know, one of the things I say, Jay, all the time is, you know, when you've got gorgeous foliage, who needs flowers? And I really love foliage arrangements.
It's such a great way for us to enjoy something that's going to be long lasting.
Yeah.
And you have so many great foliages here.
Yeah.
I love a burning bush.
Yep.
That's beautiful.
Yep. And, you know, it'll change colors over the course of the fall. A great English designer once said, remember, green is a color too.
Absolutely.
You know, and so there's a lot of different greens.
And I love the different textures that we can get, because if we use the evergreens in there, and then the variegated, now I call this Weigela.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
We call it Weigelia.
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 That's
yeah.
perfect. Well, and
This is a variegated form, and I really like it. I like
it's
this,
so pretty.
this gold edge to it. Yeah, so it makes it pop a little bit. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Well, this is one of our magnolias called Bracken's Brown Beauty, and what I love about it, it has this beautiful velvet brown underside of the leaf, which is really quite handsome, I think. So anyway, you saw the fruit pod of the southern magnolia. What are you thinking there?
I think that that's going to kind of be a focal point for us.
Yeah.
And we'll cut it a little bit shorter.
You know, a lot of people think of foliage arrangements as being kind of something for the holidays because, you know, you've got holly, you've got evergreens, but you use these all year round.
I do, because I think, you know, it's a great basis for having something living in the house.
Sure.
And then
And it'll last a long time.
it lasts a long time. And then I can add a couple flowers if I want to.
Right.
And once those flowers have expired, I still have a beautiful arrangement.
This Cheyenne Skies grass really caught your eye, I noticed out in the garden.
A couple flowers, maybe?
Sure.
So these hydrangeas.
Well, and you know, what we have here is, you know, late in the season, because you can see the grasses are late in the season, you begin to see this sort of aging or senescence with the blooms, which I actually like.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty. So what are you thinking here? You want to use some of the greenish pink ones?
I
Or?
think I will use a greenish pink one inside there. And you know what? It can be as simple as one.
Yeah.
Because we'll just accent it off to the side
Yeah, look at that.
with that magnolia.
Very handsome. And all natural, gathered from the garden.
Perfect.
Yeah, look at that. Jay, thanks for sharing your perspective on foliage and flowers with us.
Well, and thanks for having me. It's just such a treat.
Well, it's a pleasure having you here. Want to learn more? Visit palensmith.com for delicious recipes, garden tips, blog posts, and our online store. So the next time you're thinking about adding to your home or your garden or any other place for that matter, think about those little details. And remember, some of the best things come in the smallest packages. Until next time, I'm Alan Smith. Named Fireworks. It's so beautiful. The little honeybees love it.
So many pollinators. I love that about your garden.
Oh, thank you. We raise them. We eat them. They're delicious. Have you ever eaten a butterfly? I have not. I do a great butterfly pate. You'll love it.
If you want to see how small a tiny home is in your own house, go into your garage, split it halfway from the garage side, and then just go wall to wall, and you'll get a pretty good idea of just how tiny the tiny home is.
Geckos have these little, they're called spatulae. They're little nano-sized structures on their paws. We cannot see them with our eyes. They just look like regular gecko hands. But they're actually able to create these little molecular bonds with the tiny nano-sized cracks and holes that are found in glass surfaces. So a gecko can crawl up a wall.